There is a particular kind of effort that comes before a walk. It is not the walk itself. It is the moment of deciding whether today is a day for it. The weather may be uncertain. Your shoes may be in another room. You may be wondering whether a few minutes outside are worth the preparation. Sometimes the thought of beginning takes more energy than the beginning actually requires. This episode is about making that first moment kinder. It is not an exercise plan, and it is not a promise about what your body should do. It is a practical invitation to create a small outside habit that fits the day you have. For some people, that may mean a few steps to the gate, a slow circuit near home, a chair in the fresh air, or a brief visit to a familiar green space. For others, it may mean staying near a window and preparing for another day. Every version can be a real beginning. Keep only the ideas that fit your circumstances and any advice you already receive from your care team. This is general wellness education, not personal medical advice. If movement, balance, pain, breathlessness, dizziness, or any new symptom is a concern, follow your clinician's guidance and seek help when needed. The question for today is smaller. How could being outside become a little easier to choose? The first useful change is not a route or a schedule. It is a visible beginning. Place the shoes you feel steady and where you can see them. Keep a light layer, hat, walking stick, or small bag in one familiar place if you use those things. The purpose is not to create a display. It is to let the beginning ask less of memory. When an item is hard to find, the mind has to make several decisions before the body has even moved. Where is it? Is it clean? Is the weather right? What else do I need? A small setup shortens that chain. You can look at the shoes and ask one quiet question. Would a few minutes outside fit today? You do not have to answer yes every time for the cue to be helpful. Choose what feels safe and ordinary, not what looks impressive. A familiar shoe, a route with predictable footing, and a time of day that suits your energy are often more useful than an ambitious plan. If another person helps you prepare, agree on one place where the essentials can remain. A dependable place is a form of support. Many good intentions disappear because they are built for one ideal kind of morning. A gentle walking habit needs smaller versions. On a bright day, you might step out for a few minutes. On a rainy or very hot day, you may stand under a covered area, walk an indoor hallway, or simply sit by an open window if that is comfortable and safe. The point is not to force an outdoor walk under every condition. The point is to keep the relationship with the habit flexible. Before you decide, look outside for practical information rather than permission. Is the ground wet? Is there shade? Would another time of day feel more comfortable? Do you have the layer you need? These questions are not excuses. They are how a routine learns to take care of you. A route does not need to be scenic to be useful. The most helpful route is often the one you know: the level pavement near your door, the small loop around a courtyard, the path to a bench, or the quiet side of a local park. Familiarity reduces the mental work of deciding where to go next. Notice where you naturally feel more settled. Perhaps you like to see the entrance from the path. Perhaps a nearby tree gives you a clear turning point. Perhaps you prefer to walk where there are people nearby without needing to talk. A route can become supportive because it contains small landmarks that ask nothing from you: a gate, a flower bed, a corner, a bench, a mailbox. Sometimes a walk feels easier when it has a modest reason beyond exercise. You might look for one color in a garden, notice what has changed since yesterday, post a letter, greet a neighbor, or sit for 2 minutes somewhere with a view. A purpose turns the walk into a small visit with the world rather than a test to complete. Keep the purpose light enough that you can let it go. If you do not reach the garden or the bench, you have not failed. The point was to give your attention a friendly place to land. Often the smallest observation is enough: sunlight on a wall, a new leaf, a familiar dog, a change in the air. After you return, make the ending easy. Put shoes back in their place. Set down the items you brought. Drink something if that suits your own guidance. Let the body settle before moving straight into another task. A routine is more likely to return when its ending feels calm. If you enjoy recording the experience, keep it simple. One word on a calendar, A small mark on a card or a note such as bench or breeze can be enough. The record is not a score. It is a reminder that you made room for a moment outside. Missed days do not erase the relationship. They simply make the next available day the next beginning. Some walks are easier with company, some are easier alone. You may enjoy asking a friend, family member, neighbor, or walking group to join you when that feels safe and welcome. You may also value a quiet walk where no conversation is required. Both options count. If you make plans with another person, leave room for change. A message that says, "Would a short walk still suit you?" can be more useful than a rigid commitment. A flexible invitation respects real energy, real weather, and real life. The goal is to create connection where it helps, not pressure where it does not. There is a difference between preparing for a walk and turning preparation into another project. The useful preparation is usually very small. It may be checking that the path near the door is clear, putting a phone where you can reach it, or taking a moment to notice the temperature. It does not have to involve new equipment, a detailed timetable, or a promise to go farther tomorrow. Imagine the version of yourself who will decide about outside time later in the day. That person may be tired, distracted, or simply not in the mood to search for things. What can you do now that removes one small question later? You might put shoes together rather than in separate rooms. You might place a light jacket on the back of a chair. You might set a small bag near the door if it contains items you already use. One prepared beginning is enough. Preparation also includes knowing when to change the plan. If the pavement looks slippery, if the heat is stronger than you expected, or if you do not feel steady, the kind choice may be a different version of outside time. You could sit where you can feel fresh air, stand near the doorway for a minute, or choose an indoor walk along a familiar path. Flexibility does not weaken a habit. It is what helps a habit survive ordinary life. Try not to make the choice depend on a perfect amount of motivation. Motivation rises and falls for everyone. A visible cue can do more reliable work. When the shoes are where you can see them, you do not have to remember the whole intention. You only have to notice the first possible action. A routine becomes gentler when it asks, "Is there a small version available?" rather than, "Can I do the ideal version today?" There may be days when you look at the cue and decide not to go out. That is not evidence that the system has failed. It may simply mean that you listened carefully. Keep the cue in place. Let it remain an invitation rather than a demand. The choice to pause can be part of the same practice of paying attention. One reason a short walk can feel larger than it is comes from not knowing when it will end. If you leave the house with no clear return point, the mind may imagine a longer effort than you intended. A turning point removes some of that uncertainty. It can be a lamp post, the nearest gate, a particular tree, a bench, or the end of a familiar building. You are not choosing a distance to prove anything. You are choosing a clear place where you can decide whether to return. Before you step out, say the plan in plain language. I am going to the corner and back. I am going to sit on the bench for 2 minutes. I am going as far as the garden entrance. Small language makes a small plan feel real. It also gives you permission to end the walk when you reach the point you chose. The turning point can change. On one day, you may feel comfortable continuing a little farther. On another, the planned place may be enough. Both choices are useful. You are practicing the ability to make a decision while you are already outside. Rather than treating the day as a test you must pass or fail before you leave home. For people who prefer a companion, a turning point can make planning easier together. You can say, "Let us walk to the bench and see how it feels." This leaves room for a conversation, a pause, or an earlier return. It also avoids the pressure of pretending that every outing has to follow the same shape. Look for one turning point that feels friendly rather than merely functional. Perhaps it is a flower bed you like, a place with shade, or a wall where the afternoon light changes. A familiar landmark can become a little promise. When you arrive there, you may stop, look around, and choose what comes next. Outside time can be useful because it changes what the eyes and ears are asked to hold. Indoors, attention is often pulled toward unfinished tasks, notices, screens, and objects that need a decision. Outside, attention can land on something that does not require an answer. A moving branch, a bird on a wire, the shape of a cloud, the sound of distant traffic, or the color of a door can be enough. You do not need to turn the walk into a mindfulness exercise. There is no correct way to notice. If it feels comfortable, choose one ordinary detail and let it keep you company. You might look for a color you have not seen yet that day. You might count 3 different sounds. You might simply feel the change in air as you move from shade into light. The purpose is not to make the moment special. It is to let the moment be different from the one before it. Some days the outside world will not feel especially calm. There may be noise, construction, other people, or a weather change. Notice that too without arguing with it. You can shorten the walk, choose another route, or return home. The habit is not a promise that every outing will be peaceful. It is a way of giving yourself another place to stand for a little while. If you enjoy taking a photograph, make it a picture of something small and real. A plant, a shadow, a familiar gate, or a patch of sky. If you do not want a phone, you might remember one detail and mention it later to someone you trust. These observations can build a small sense of continuity. They say that the world changed a little since yesterday, and you were there to notice it. The return home deserves as much kindness as the beginning. After you open the door, there may be a temptation to move immediately to the next task. Put the kettle on, check a message, answer a question, fold something, tidy something. Before you do, give yourself a minute to arrive. Take off what you do not need. Place shoes in their familiar home. Sit down if sitting feels welcome. Let the transition be visible. This small ending protects the next walk. When an outing ends in a rush, the mind may remember only the effort of fitting it into the day. When the ending is simple and calm, the whole experience becomes easier to repeat. You do not need a reward or a complicated routine. You only need a clear signal that the walk is finished and that you do not have to earn the right to rest after it. You might keep a glass or cup available at home if that suits your own advice. You might look out through the window once more and notice how the view looks from inside. You might write one word on a card: shade, hello, quiet, breeze, or simply out. The word is not evidence of performance. It is a small thread connecting this visit outside to the next one. If the outing was harder than you expected, let the return be a place for honest adjustment. Maybe the route felt too long, the shoes did not feel right, the time of day was not comfortable, or you would rather have sat outside than walked. These are not disappointments to hide. They are useful information. The next version of the habit can become safer and more fitting because you paid attention. If the outing felt good, resist the urge to immediately turn it into a bigger goal. Let one comfortable walk remain one comfortable walk. The next time can be decided when it arrives. A gentle habit grows through trust, not through pressure. Rather than making a promise about every day, try a 3-day experiment. On the first day, keep one cue visible. On the second day, choose one outside version that feels realistic. On the third day, notice what made the beginning easier or harder. That is all. The experiment is not about building a perfect record. It is about learning which supports belong in your own routine. At the end of each day, ask one practical question. Did I have to search for something? Did the weather make the plan less comfortable? Did I like the route? Did I prefer company or quiet? Did the return feel rushed? Write one answer if writing helps. If not, simply remember it. Over a few days, you may begin to see one small change that would make the next attempt kinder. Perhaps you discover that you prefer the air outside before lunch, when the street is quieter. Perhaps you learn that leaving a hat near the door helps you decide more easily. Perhaps a bench is enough, and a longer route is not necessary. Perhaps the best day was the day you stood outside for only 2 minutes, because it was the day you honored what was realistic. The value of the experiment is not in how much you did. It is in what you learned. A habit that fits is easier to come back to than a habit built from someone else's idea of success. Small observations are how you shape it into something that belongs to your life. When you make room for a little more outside time, you are not required to become a different kind of person. You are not required to move quickly, go far, or enjoy every minute. You are simply creating a few small conditions that make a visit with the world possible. An item where you can find it, a route you recognize, a turning point you trust, and an ending that lets you rest. Tomorrow, choose one cue. It may be your shoes, a jacket, a note, or a view through a window. Let it ask one gentle question. Is there a small version of outside time available today? Whatever the answer is, you can listen. And when the answer is yes, even for a minute, you will have made a little room for the day to feel larger than the room you started in. A gentle walking habit is easier to trust when safety is included before the first step. That does not mean you need to worry about every possible thing that might happen. It means you give yourself enough information to make a calm decision. Look at the ground near the door. Notice whether the light is changing. Consider the weather, your usual needs, and any guidance you have already been given. If today is not the day for a particular route, another version is available. For some people, a helpful preparation is to let someone know they are going out. For others, it is bringing a phone, using a mobility aid already recommended to them, or choosing a place where help is nearby. These are not rules for every listener. They are examples of how a routine can be made to fit real life. The aim is to reduce avoidable uncertainty, not to turn a short outing into a complicated operation. It can be useful to choose a time when you have the clearest attention. Perhaps that is after a quiet cup of tea, after the street has become less busy, or before the day gets too warm. The best time does not have to match anyone else's schedule. A habit becomes more personal, and therefore more durable, when it respects the rhythms you already have. If you notice pain, dizziness, unusual breathlessness, weakness, or anything that feels new or worrying, stop and follow appropriate medical guidance. A gentle routine does not ask you to push through signals that need attention. Taking care of yourself is not an interruption of the habit. It is the reason the habit is being shaped carefully in the first place. There is comfort in having permission to change your mind. You can get ready, open the door, look outside, and decide that a different plan makes more sense. You can walk only to the mailbox. You can return after 30 steps. You can rest on a bench before you imagined you would. The decision to respond to the day as it is does not make the walk less meaningful. It makes the walk yours. Habits are often easier to remember when they are connected to something that already happens. You may not need an alarm or a detailed calendar. You might simply link outside time to a familiar transition. After putting breakfast dishes away, before listening to a favorite radio program, after checking the mail, or when the afternoon light reaches a particular part of the room. The link is not a command. It is a prompt that says the option is available. Choose only one transition at first. If you attach the walk to too many moments, it can begin to feel as if you are always behind. One dependable cue is enough. Perhaps you see the shoes after making a drink. Perhaps you notice the window before you sit down. Perhaps a neighbor's dog passing by reminds you that the street exists beyond the front door. Let the cue be ordinary. When the cue appears, make a small decision rather than a large promise. You can say, I will put on my shoes and see. You can say, I will stand outside for 1 minute. You can say, I will check whether the path feels comfortable. Starting this way leaves room for your body and the day to answer back. It prevents the first thought from becoming an argument about distance or time. If the cue passes and you do not go out, nothing has been lost. The next cue will come. Repetition does not have to mean doing the same thing every day without exception. It can mean returning to the possibility with a patient attitude. A flexible habit is not fragile. It simply has more than one way to be practiced. Over time, you may notice that the cue begins to work before you even think about it. A jacket on a hook may make you remember the air outside. The sound of the kettle may make you picture the path. These small associations are not dramatic, but they can reduce the effort required to begin. They allow a short walk to become one ordinary choice among other ordinary choices. The pace of a gentle walk is not something you need to compare with anyone else. It may be slower than it once was. It may change from one day to the next. It may include stopping to look, sitting down, talking, or turning back early. The value of the outing is not measured by how quickly you cover ground. It is measured by whether the experience fits the energy, comfort, and attention you have today. Try giving the first few minutes room to be slow. Let your body settle into the change from indoors to outdoors. Notice how the surface feels under your feet, how the light changes, and whether the first part of the route is comfortable. There is no prize for hurrying through the beginning. A slower start can help you notice whether continuing still feels right. If you meet someone you know, a brief greeting may become the purpose of the outing. If you do not feel like talking, a nod or a smile can be enough. You are allowed to protect quiet as well as connection. The walk does not have to become a social occasion to count. It can be a small private space within the day. Some people find it helpful to carry a phrase that makes the pace feel kinder. I have time for the next few steps, or I can turn around whenever I choose. The phrase is not meant to force optimism. It is a reminder that the route belongs to you. You can pause, you can look around, you can return, you can do less than you planned and still have done something real. As you approach home again, resist the idea that the walk only matters if it becomes a routine with a fixed shape. Today may be a walk to the gate. Tomorrow may be a window, a garden chair, or an indoor hallway. The common thread is not distance. It is the act of giving yourself a small change of scene with enough kindness that you may want to try again. There is a quiet pleasure in recognizing a place across several days. You may notice that a plant has opened, that a tree has changed color, that a shop has moved a display, or that the same patch of sunlight reaches a different place in the morning. These small changes can make a familiar route feel alive without asking you to travel anywhere new. You do not need to collect memories formally. You may simply mention a detail at dinner, tell a friend that the air was cooler than expected, or pause when you see something that makes you smile. If you enjoy a notebook, keep it near the place where you return your shoes and write one short line. If you do not enjoy writing, no record is required. The memory can remain private and complete. Small outdoor memories can be especially useful on days when you remain inside. You might look at a photograph you took, remember the smell after rain, or notice the same tree from a window. This is not a substitute for an outing, and it does not need to be. It is a reminder that a relationship with a place can continue even when the shape of the day changes. When you build continuity in this quiet way, you give the habit more than one source of value. It is no longer only about movement. It becomes a way of noticing seasons, routines, neighbors, and your own preferences. You may discover that you like a particular corner because it is quiet. You may discover that you prefer the path with more shade. These preferences are useful information. They help the next outing feel less like an assignment and more like a choice. At the end of this episode, choose one support you can keep. It may be a pair of shoes together by the door. It may be a trusted turning point. It may be a note that says, "Just the first minute." It may be a message you can send to someone who sometimes enjoys a short walk. Do not choose 5 supports at once. One support you actually see is more useful than a long list you have to remember. For the next few days, let that support do its quiet work. If it helps, keep it. If it does not, change it. Perhaps the shoes need to be somewhere else. Perhaps the route needs more shade. Perhaps your cue is not the morning but the hour before dinner. You are not failing when you revise the plan. You are learning how to make the plan fit. There will be days when leaving home is easy and days when it is not. A dependable habit makes room for both. It does not need you to feel enthusiastic. It only needs a small doorway back into the practice. When the shoes are visible, when the route is familiar, and when the return is allowed to be simple, that doorway is already there. The next time you look outside, do not ask what you ought to accomplish. Ask what version of outside time is kind and realistic today. It may be a few steps, a little air, a bench, a greeting, or simply a prepared beginning for another day. That is enough. You are building a habit that can remain with you because it knows how to be small. It is worth saying plainly that routines meet real days. A plan can be reasonable in the morning and impossible by afternoon. The weather can turn. A call can take longer than expected. You may be needed by someone else, or you may simply have less energy than you imagined. None of this removes the value of the preparation you made. When a walk does not happen, look for the smallest part of the habit that can remain. You might return the shoes to their place. You might look outside and notice the weather. You might sit near a window for a minute. You might decide that tomorrow's cue will still be waiting. These actions are not consolation prizes. They keep the habit connected to kindness rather than disappointment. If several days pass, begin again with the first minute. There is no need to make up for time or prove that you are serious. A new beginning can be as simple as opening the curtain, finding the shoes, or standing at the door. The root will still be there when the day is right for it. This is one of the quiet strengths of a gentle habit. It does not depend on an unbroken chain. It depends on the welcome you give yourself when you return. Each small return teaches the mind that the routine is available, not demanding. Over time, that may be more useful than any perfect streak. Let today be information, not a verdict. Notice what was possible. Notice what would have helped. Then keep one small support ready for the next day that offers an opening. The outside world will not ask you to be perfect before it lets you in. Before the day closes, choose one detail you want to meet again. It may be the quiet part of the street, the feeling of a familiar handrail, a shaded bench, or the sight of leaves moving in the air. Keep that detail lightly in mind. It does not need to become a promise. It can simply be a reason to leave one cue ready. A gentle walking habit begins again whenever the next small opening appears. Let the preparation be enough for now. The next step can wait until it is truly welcome. The outside world does not have to be far away to offer something. A doorstep, a garden path, a bench, a patch of shade, a familiar corner, or a view through a window can remind you that the day contains more than the room you began in. A gentle walking habit is not measured by distance. It is built from the small preparations that make another beginning feel possible. For the next 3 days, choose one cue to keep visible and one small version of outside time that feels realistic. Let the plan remain modest. Notice what makes the first minute easier. Then let that clue guide the next one.